The CW Chronicles. Sinners. Written by Silvano Williams. All content copyright 2013-2023. All rights reserved. Chapter 14. Judgments and Conclusions.
Release him.
Ilona shouted out. For a split second, it felt like an echo of the memory of her fighting villain, but it wasn't. I awoke to 4-dimension police officers restraining me and holding me down against my cell cot. "What are you doing to me?" I blurted. The adrenaline rush in my heart bolted through me like an electric shock. I arched my back as if possessed, trying to escape from their grip.
Stand down.
Ilona yelled and pushed one of the DP officers holding my legs out of the way. I freed my leg from him and kicked the other one in the chest. The officer crashed against the wall across the cell and landed on his butt. Ilona jumped on me and flattened me down on the spongy mattress.
Vlad, no. Calm down.
She swatted at the other two that held my arms down.
He's awake. See? Let him go. He is awake now.
Ilona grabbed my face in her hands and pulled me closer to her own. I wished her eyes weren't filled with panic.
Vlad, tell me you are here. Tell me you are okay.
Get these clowns off me, I grumbled. I'm here. It's me. Whatever. Just get them off.
Please release him.
Ilona said again. This time I felt the grips from the other 2 officers loosen on my wrists. The officer I had kicked got up to his feet and walked around to my side. I finally focused on all of them and became electric with indignation. They were all wearing beanies, like CW's. Is this some kind of joke? I yelled at them. Why are you wearing those beanies?
We honor CW's memory.
The guards replied in unison. Their translators and speech modulators made them all sound very similar. Ilona used her entire body to hold me down. I controlled myself enough not to push her clear off, but these unbelievers were getting a mouthful. He isn't dead. I spat out, you are all morons. He isn't dead. Ilona put her face up against mine and called for my attention.
Vlad. Calm down.
She ordered. Tell these posers that CW is not dead. I fumed. Her eyes were inches from mine. The heat of her breath warmed my lips when her nose met mine. Then she grabbed me by my hands. She squeezed as hard as she could. I wouldn't have guessed her own wrists and arms had been shattered just 2 weeks ago.
May I please have a few more moments with the lieutenant?
She said, turning away from me to speak to the DP officers.
I think there is more to explain.
Yes, ma'am.
They chanted in unison and obediently walked out. Ilona kept her gaze on them until they left the room, then she quickly turned to face me. Her large, beautiful eyes were the only thing I could focus on.
They had to hold you down, Vlad.
Ilona explained, just as I finally realized that she was lying on me, breathing very heavily and out of breath. This wasn't a sensual embrace, though. Regardless, I felt her body on top of mine and my eyes widened. I liked it.
You were levitating.
She said calmly.
And you combusted.
Her words killed the thought. I looked down and noticed my scorched jumpsuit, which made me pull back away from her, filled with fear. Solely on instinct, I nudged her back to protect her and looked around anxiously to see if anyone else had been hurt.
Vlad, calm down.
She said and stood up from the cot.
It's over now.
I sat up. The inside of my head felt like it swung outward like a pendulum of immediate pain. What are you talking about? I groaned and grinned sheepishly at her. You said I exploded.
Combusted, Vlad.
She clarified but didn't smile back. Instead, she stood next to my cot, leaning her head to the side a little and peered down at me. So? I lit up like a match? I flung my hands around, up and down from my knees to my head to simulate flames and explosions. Like swoosh.
Something like that.
Ilona replied dryly, obviously no longer entertained by my foolishness.
You don't feel anything weird or wrong?
I have a headache, but nothing else out of the ordinary. What happened? She walked away from me and out of the cell. She did not close the gate behind her.
Come with me. I want to run some tests on you,
Ilona said as she walked on ahead without looking back at me. I leaned forward to look at the floor and rubbed my wrists. Then I scanned around the cell. There were burn marks on the cell's ceiling and the smell of smoke crept into my nose. Ilona had walked into a room down the hallway. I jumped up and went after her. Are you mad at me? I asked.
No, Vlad. But I need you to see this.
I slowly walked into the room she had gone into, inspecting it for details. It looked like a surgery room with its white walls, metallic accents, and teal-colored lights in most of the electronics. Aside from a large empty white wall, the place was littered with computer devices and medical equipment. There was a bed in front of the otherwise bare wall. A great hulk of mass breathed under the covers. I ran to it. It was CW. CW was underneath the large blanket, lying on his side with his disfigured face half exposed, buried in a pillow. When I approached, he switched positions to face away from me. He sobbed softly. I put my hand on his shoulder, but there was no reaction from him. I leaned my head on CW and whispered, "I'm so sorry, my friend. I let you down."
He's been in a semi-catatonic state since.
Ilona said.
And the truth is, most of the DP officers that are left don't even recognize him. It's like they forgot who he was. They only remember his beanie.
The beanie was the symbol of his power. I bet that without it he's just a hunk of deformed sludge to those that never knew him like we did, I explained.
Can you recognize him?
Ilona asked curiously. Absolutely, I said excitedly. I certainly recognize him. I even feel his presence. All around him, I see a glow of blue energy. It's like an aura.
Vlad. I can't.
Ilona said, concerned.
I mean, I can see his suit, and I am aware that he could and should be CW. But when I look at his face, the only thing I can recall knowing are his eyes. I have to make a conscious effort to remind myself that this is Captain Weenie.
If only the healing technology the DP used on us worked on you. I whispered to CW and hugged him.
His invulnerability keeps us from being able to heal him, but we keep trying,
Ilona said as she clicked on a floating monitor in front of her.
I took him out of the healing chamber so you could see him. Putting him back now.
My violent act shattered his hope, Ilona. This is all my fault. I tried to hold on to him, but CW was pulled away from me. Part of the wall slid up, revealing another room on the other side, and his bed was taken into it. The wall closed back down silently. So what's the deal with me catching on fire? What in the hell is up with that? I had lived it, but I didn't quite understand it.
It is proof, Vladimir,
Gabriel said, sneaking up behind me and scaring the crap out of me. Man, seriously? I exclaimed, agitated, but Gabriel walked past me with a smile on his face and a joyful bounce in his step, which was at odds with my mood. Okay. I groaned, expecting explanations. I wiped my face and straightened up. Ilona was the first to speak.
Vlad,
She said, pulling up an examination table from the floor in the middle of the room.
you recounted what happened to you when Villain had you in his grip and choked you, but do you remember it happening to you? Is there anything else you remember from it?
I had no memory of it, other than reliving it a few minutes ago in the visions. No, I said. It feels like whatever happened didn't happen to me. I walked over to the examination table and sat on it. Am I lying down on this thing? Ilona nodded and tapped the rubbery mattress. What do I remember? I wondered as I lay down and closed my eyes, searching for those visions. There were no travels into distant memories this time. Right now, I said, it just feels like someone told me about what happened and I repeated it. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I remember it, but only because I just saw it. I have no original recollection of what happened after Villain pulled me down from the ejection seat. All I remember is that I heard a loud snap inside of me, and everything went black after that. I don't even remember feeling pain or Gabriel speaking to me. The thuds of heavy footsteps in the hallway outside distracted me momentarily, as a towering figure walked into the room. For a moment, I hoped it was CW, but it was just another DP officer wearing a glimmering suit like Gabriel's. They wore a sparkly silvery blue armor that seemed to emit as much light as it reflected, covered by small toga-like drapes of cloth held in place on their chest by a golden brooch in the shape of wings. The larger DP officer stood next to Gabriel and hovered somberly over him. Ilona slapped a cold, wet electrode on my forehead. I turned my head again to look at them, but she grabbed me by the chin and straightened my head.
Stay still,
she ordered. She wasn't being very nice. I opened my eyes wide at Ilona and mouthed to her, "Who is that?" Gabriel answered me.
This is Mordred. He is our designated historian and chronicler.
So why is he so freaking big and serious and you are so, how do I say it without sounding like a homophobic jerk?
No need.
Gabriel quickly answered.
We have modeled ourselves to what your subconscious will tolerate.
Gabriel stepped closer to me.
You see, our physical shape is one of almost pure energy. However, your human eyes are sensitive to our light, and if we were to shine with our natural luminescence, it would hurt you and possibly blind you, as it would most other beings in the Dimension Police. Since you were our first contact, I tapped into your subconscious when you and I first met, and we've all reshaped our bodies to conform to your acceptable expectations.
What you're saying, I tried to retort, is that you are a figment of my imagination? There was something about these guys that I just couldn't take too seriously.
Yes.
Gabriel answered cheerfully.
Fabulous, isn't it?
And Ilona, can see you the same as I asked.
Yes, I can. It could be worse, considering how much you like anime and manga,
Ilona said while turning on the brain scanner she had attached to my head. So, in my subconscious, I can accept that this guy is like a stout beer-drinking surly man while you are a blue-skinned flamboyant Harlem Dimension trotter.
Your mind, your reality, Vladimir.
Gabriel replied cheerfully, unaffected by my poor metaphor. Is that Mordred with an E or an I? 'Cause the one with an E is already taken and that may cause us some legal troubles, I egged on. Mordred was serious though.
In your language, it is spelled with an I, Vladimir, and we will not be a cause of trouble,
he said in a thick, deep, and almost robotic voice.
For we are the sons of Captain Weenie, and we abide by his code of law and honor.
I pulled my hand up to my chest in an apologetic manner. No offense intended, big guy. Ilona pushed my arm back down to my side.
Stay still. I am going to do a full body scan now,
she said and got back to pushing buttons on the large white console in front of her. The buttons lit up with assorted colors, and a sound began to whirl from within the machine. Unsurprisingly, I accepted everything they said as fact. After 2 years of exploring a countless number of dimensions, including the Weirdiverse, I had seen it all. Right then, I was excited to be out of my cell after 2 weeks. Besides, these guys had a lot of information I wanted to know. Gabriel, I blurted, so what does me floating and catching on fire mean? He bounced up in excitement.
It means that cosmic energy is flowing through you. It means that the cherubs have touched you. You could be a chosen one.
I said don't move.
Ilona scorned me again because I shook my head to say no at the thought of little fat people touching me. Then I remembered something else. You call yourselves the sons of the captain?
We are the sons of Captain Weenie, yes.
Gabriel answered. Explain that.
I am not much of a storyteller,
Gabriel said apologetically.
However, Mordred has our historical database memorized. He can tell you all about our origins, but not today. In time. Today, We are here to listen and understand your actions that led to the extinction of an original species.
Okay, I sighed. I knew this freedom was too good to last. I'm sure you heard what I told Ilona earlier. I did what I thought I had to do to keep her safe. I am sorry I killed the froggy. I truly am, but I can't take that back now.
What do you mean by that?
Gabriel asked affectionately. Listen, I said and closed my eyes. To my surprise, they watered on me again. I lost CW 2 weeks ago, and the one person in the universe that was there for me when I had given it all up almost died. I reacted in the moment and throughout the entirety of it. At first I was reckless, just trying to destroy as many space armada as I could, and ultimately I thought our situation was hopeless. Not to mention seeing all the DP officers that sacrificed themselves for us that day. If I had a time machine, I would go back and change it all.
Time travel is not possible with the use of technology, Vladimir.
Mordred corrected me. If I had to guess, he was annoyed by me. Ilona and Gabriel, on the other hand, remained silent and watched me, waiting for me to continue. Whatever. I scratched my chin, then slowly felt the unshaven stubble all over my face with my hand. Then I continued. I acted as if I had no other choice. That is true. Only after having done that horrible deed that day, did I finally understand what CW's belief in hope was. Not just the lip service, but the undeniable feeling inside. I understand the power it has over all of us. And what I'm upset about is that when he needed me the most, when he most needed my trust in his ways, I abandoned him. I took the easy way out to avoid my pain. I killed that froggy because I was afraid of losing Ilona. And fine, I can't take that back now, but I can do more to make up for it. I can help bring Villain down.
What do you think that cost will be, Vladimir?
I don't know, but I am willing to give my own life for CW and his cause. I looked up at Ilona. And I understand something else now. I get it, I said to her. The same way I am willing to sacrifice myself for him, so may you. I'm not able to stop our fates. If this is what the cosmos needs for order and good to prevail, then so be it.
Are you willing to sacrifice the ones you love?
Ilona looked back at me with a sad yet understanding smile. Yes, I said. If that is my price to rid the cosmos of Villain, then yes, I am. I then threw my head back against the rubber mattress and closed my eyes, feeling horrible about what that meant.
Thank you for your testimony, Vladimir.
Mordred interrupted once again.
While we disagree with your actions, imprisoning you is not the sons of Captain Weenie's role. The cherubs have chosen you, for whatever purpose we have yet to understand. The Dimension Police was created to uphold the laws of order in the cosmos, so it has a sworn duty to protect life. According to the instructions left behind by Commander Sandworm, it is up to Commander Ilona to determine whether you require imprisonment for your crimes.
What? I jerked up on the examination table. Ilona was not surprised and did not try to make me sit still this time. Instead, she leaned back against the large monitoring device next to her and said,
No, he is still a prisoner of the Dimension Police.
She was stern, but I could see the sadness and conflict in her eyes. Gabriel walked up to me. He then placed his hand around my burnt prison suit and onto my chest. His hand felt cold on the outside as if made of metal, yet my skin warmed up with his touch. I simply looked at him.
You are at peace. That is fantastic. We've been summoned to end this war before it extinguishes the cosmos. For us to be successful, we will need to understand what only you can see. You may be a prisoner of the Dimension Police, but I would prefer it if we could all collaborate.
I stared at him silently when he pulled his hand away.
With your talent, I believe we can study the events of the past and fill in the gaps to find the answers we need, for it was in the past that our current predicament was created. Would you accept to work with us?
Yes, was the only acceptable answer, which I blurted out just before remembering I was still a prisoner and probably didn't have much of a say in the matter. Would you allow it? I asked Ilona.
Depends.
She said, studying me.
How do you feel?
I looked down at my scorched suit, then at Mordred and Gabriel, and back at her. Surprisingly calm, I said, smiling a genuine smile of emotional release. Ilona briefly abandoned her clinical and in-charge demeanor.
I'm sorry I didn't tell you, but I had to review your well-being from an impartial point of view. If you had known I was the commander...
There's no need to apologize about anything to me, Ilona, I interrupted. You were doing what needed to be done, and I have nothing to be upset about. On the contrary, I smiled at Gabriel. I'm aware I need a babysitter. And who better than you? Ilona looked at Gabriel, and then back at me.
Actually,
she said, stepping back away from me and toward the side of the room where the large blank wall was, where CW rested. She reached up and pressed a button on a panel on the wall.
Vlad, I won't be able to stay with you for much longer.
But you said, I began when the wall slid open. It wasn't CW's bed that was behind the wall this time, but a large vat filled with a slimy bright orange liquid. I could vaguely see some sort of cocoon inside, but it grabbed my attention. The cocoon was translucent, contracting as small bursts of energy traveled through fiber tubes into it, expanding when it absorbed them. The cocoon's texture was at once very familiar to me. Is that, I stuttered in amazement, is that the commander? Ilona looked at me, and then back at the colorful vat.
Aha!
She hummed in agreement. I stood up from the examination bed and walked up to the container. What happened to him? I pressed my hand against the glass. The container was 3 inches thick, yet the glass was warm to the touch from the contents within it.
The commander is currently undergoing a metamorphosis.
So, he survived. I said, astonished but glad.
Oh, the commander can survive anything, Vladimir.
Gabriel answered back as if this was common knowledge. Really? I turned to Gabriel. Suddenly, the commander can survive anything? That's damn convenient, isn't it? Gabriel looked confused.
What do you mean?
I thought for a second, and curbed my sarcasm since I didn't want them to rescind their offer to work together. I was being an ass, but y'all could have told me the commander survived 2 weeks ago. Or are you going to pull that need-to-know crap again? I looked to Ilona for an answer.
Considering what we've had to do, Vlad,
she replied unfazed.
You are a top-secret asset. I am granting you an all-access clearance pass to information needed for your reports, and you'll work with Mordred and Gabriel from this moment forward. They'll guide you through your visions. If you agree, of course.
I feigned thinking about it.
We'll make the captain available to you whenever you need him,
Ilona said, then added.
And you will have unrestricted access from your cell to this room.
On the one hand, I was hoping to spend more time with Ilona, but on the other hand, I was going to be useful again. I was back on a mission. At least this way, they'd allow me to actively be involved in finding and defeating villain, even if it meant that my living space was a cell and a room full of weird equipment. I'll take the job, I said with exaggerated enthusiasm, agreeing to her terms.
Very well,
Mordred said without much emotion.
We will work alongside you from this moment on. Together, we will find out how to stop villain and restore Captain Weenie to his rightful place.
Cool. Where do we start? I said, clapping my hands loudly.
We should start at the beginning, Vladimir,
Gabriel said.
The day Captain Weenie and villain came into existence,
Mordred added. Fine, I contended, but stop calling him Captain Weenie. Both Gabriel and Mordred were unyielding and replied in unison.
That is his name.
Oh, whatever, I wasn't going to argue it anymore. Get me some coffee then, I said instead, 'cause it's gonna be a long night.